Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. Today we're going to be having a look at May's exceptional story, The Wire of Eels. But as always, at the start of a new exceptional story, there are spoilers ahead. I encourage you to play these for yourself. Support Failbetter, become an exceptional friend, you get access to these stories, a second candle, an expanded opportunity deck, and more outfit slots, and the House of Chimes and stuff like that. It's all very fantastic. Well, there's a few options here, but today we're going to be having a look at the Wire Eels. It's that time of year again. Once per annum, with the regularity of clockwork, the waters of the stolen river churn back with an immense, writhing torrent of eels, barreling towards the Zee. Anglers line the banks. Urchins warp. The waters froth and foam. No one quite knows where the eels are going, but they certainly seem eager to get there. So we have three options. We can enjoy a riverside meal. At this time of year, a nice eel pie and mash goes down a treat and is sold at every riverside eatery. We can indulge in a spot of fishing. There's never an easier time to catch an eel. They practically leap into the nets. We can bet on an eel race. The trick is getting them to swim within their lanes. We try this. Why not? Let's bet. Splash. They're off. Immediately, the wriggling and writhing makes it almost impossible to tell which eel is which. The spectators devolve into confused shouting as they gaze down at a haul of interlocked, indistinguishable eels. A punch is thrown. A general melee ensues. Most of the eels slip away unobserved. Your eel is apparently one of the ones that fled. As you walk away, cutting your losses, you spot a fisherman wrestling with his rod. Aha! Looks like a big one. The fisherman pulls his prize from the water, an effort that sends him sprawling backwards. The eel lands next to him, writhing in shock. Shouts of alarm go up among the surrounding citizens as they get a good look at the thing's face. It's distressingly human face. Pale flesh pulled taut over malformed bone. A sharp, protruding nose. A twinkling human eye. An endlessly grinning mouth, stretching back well beyond any human jaw. We can either examine the specimen, fascinating, or we can avert our gaze. It is simply too horrible to contemplate, especially when it's contemplating you right back. Let's examine the specimen. Color me curious. Your eyes scour its hideous visage, trying to burn every detail into your memory. This is something new. It is eel-like. Yes, but undeniably tinged with humanity. Around you, the spectators moan in horror. Someone retreats to regurgitate their eel pie into a rose bush. Even for London, this is an unappetizing sight. The eel flops back and forth, once, twice. Then, with a particularly powerful thrash, it hurls itself back into the river. A dark splash. The flicker of a tail, and it's gone. The next day's newspapers are filled with horror and speculation about the half-human eel caught in the stolen river. You'd put an estimate at about 70% eel, but that would make for a poorer headline. What have we been putting in our pies? Demands the unexpurged Gazette. Its pages are filled with breathless witness testimonies. Some from people you know for a fact weren't present, and some which claim that the eel sung a song of sixpence or declared itself a Republican. But the pies are the central concern. Londoners have enjoyed eel pies for centuries. Has human flesh made its way into the recipe? By day's end, the mystery comes knocking at your door. The man on the other side shows you the badge of the Department of menace eradication. The department's representative is an unflappable exterminator. His dapper little hat and neatly pressed clothes contrast with big, meaty hands that look like they could crush a pebble into dust. You invite him inside, and he has to stoop to pass under the doorframe. Taking off his little hat and twisting it in his hands, the exterminator explains that you, as a primary witness and known problem solver, are best positioned to lead an investigation into the nature of the grinning eel. The department would be most grateful, he says, his voice lilting lisp that contrasts starkly with his massive frame and scarred knuckles. Though we can agree for the sake of curiosity, this could be a breakthrough for the natural sciences, or even better, the unnatural sciences. We can agree for the sake of our coffers, a tidy reward is in the offing. You try to negotiate payment up front too, but that proves a bridge too far. Or we can agree for the sake of Eel Pie. It won't do for one of London's staples to have its good name besmirched. Let's do it for curiosity, as much as I like money. Word of advice, says the unflappable exterminator. If you're keen on the sciences, there's someone you'll want to speak to. Oh, and who's that? There's a half-drowned ichthyologist. Works at Benthic, I think. He's written half the books on eels we could find in the library, which is admittedly only 2. The ichthyologist's hiding place. It takes a while to track down the half-drowned ichthyologist. He no longer works at Benthic. The scholars there tell you he was never the same after an accident that killed his partner. You trace him to his abode, a narrow house on Simple Street, from which he apparently hasn't emerged in some time. Its windows are boarded up, the door secured with a dozen locks. A knock at the door produces little more than a muffled, "Go away." 2 options: we can coax him out with an interesting specimen, a deep Z catch. See this thing? Z fresh and hideous, with eyes where eyes shouldn't be. No self-respecting ichthyologist could ignore it. Or we could just turn up in his living room, uninvited. When it comes to locks, he's gone for quantity over quality. Some of these would spring open if you looked at them. Let's bait him with a deep Z catch. We have 15, so... The ichthyologist opens the door a crack, glaring down at your proffered specimen with a beady eye. You see a spark of curiosity in that eye. Despite the ichthyologist's wary frown, with a sigh, he finally opens the door and ushers you inside. The house is a mess. Unpaid bills and unanswered letters scatter the floor like snow. The air is damp and chilled. Black mould traces patterns on the walls. "What brings you here?" asks the ichthyologist as he begins weighing and measuring your catch. You explain everything. The grinning eel in the stolen river. Far too human in aspect. The resultant panic in London. The ichthyologist listens with a pained expression. "Not interested," he says once you've finished explaining your purpose. Though that curious spark is gleaming brighter than before. The more time you spend in his company, the more it becomes apparent something wrong with the half-drowned ichthyologist. His skin is clammy, with a sickly pallor, and he shivers constantly. When he speaks, there's an underlying gurgle to his words, and his thinning hair clings damply to his forehead. "I've left my academic days behind me," he says. "Find some other scientist. I'm done." So we can reignite his scientific curiosity. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to study something never before known to science. Or we can clean his house. With 3 flasks of abominable salts, he'll feel better once he's not surrounded by squalor. let's clean his house. After much scrubbing and a little burning, the house is sparkling clean. The ichthyologist can't keep the smile from his face as he shuffles around his spotless new home. "Ah, it's so much better," he says, putting on his hat and coat. "And I owe you now. Damn you. I suppose I can lend you my expertise. What's the harm? I may as well." He's overcome by a fit of coughing and sputtering. He retches up a great gout of water, which splashes across the floor you worked so hard to clean. Once recovered, he grimly wipes his mouth on his sleeve. "Sorry, happens sometimes. Come on, let's go see if we can catch another one of these eels." The eels are still churning the stolen river black with their immense migration. The ichthyologist pauses to admire it for a moment, wiping away a tear. Or have his eyes just been watery this whole time? "There was once a time when I did not miss this annual migration for the world," he says. "Eels are incredible, you know. Their breeding cycle takes them down rivers and across oceans. Can you imagine such a lust for life?" He contemplates the river silently for a long time, then sighs and wipes a hand over his perpetually damp face. "Let's see if we can catch one of these unusual specimens, then. I suspect it will be rather like trying to find a needle in the proverbial." Well, let's attempt to catch an eel. Given the small size of your net and the sheer number of eels in the river, there's very little you can do except hope you get lucky. You stand by the river for hours, straining the water with nets. The ichthyologist occasionally lifts from a brooding silence to chatter spiritedly about eels, a subject which almost puts some colour in his cheeks. In the world above, no one knows where they conclude their journey, he says, where they breed and die and their cycle begins anew. In the Neath, the mystery of their breeding grounds is even further from being solved. Though you keep fishing for hours on end, you end up netting endless, perfectly ordinary eels. Perhaps that particularly human specimen was unique. "Let's try again on the morrow," says the ichthyologist dispiritedly, as you pack away your angling equipment. Oh, a strange figure approaches. The stereptitious Gorman. You're walking home after parting ways with the ichthyologist when a man falls in step beside you. His grin is piano-like. His clothes expensively tailored. His breath apocalyptic. "Couldn't help but see you struggling by the river," he bellows, as though striving to be heard from across a busy street. It is quiet. The two of you are alone. "I think I can be some small help in this endeavour, what? I know many techniques." He hands you a small card with a magician's flourish. It advertises Le Poisson d'Aville, a seafood restaurant in Vale Garden. "Come pay us a visit, what?" he roars. "Bring a bottle of something fine. We'll make a meal of it." With that, he vanishes into the fog. Let's visit the restaurant. It boasts a reputation for bold, bizarre cuisine. Not all its dishes are for everyone. Some are, perhaps, not for anyone. And take a bottle of my moral ways. This restaurant attracts a certain kind of clientele. Haunted aesthetes, yearning to feel something, even if that something is disgust. Every few weeks they gather like a cloud of flies above a carcass, descending on the building to take vile joy in the gourmand's latest piece de dissonance. But catering exclusively to that kind of crowd is a recipe for bankruptcy. Le Poisson d'Aville also offers simpler, heartier fare. Oyster porridge, crab soup, and the Londoner's favourite eel pie and mash. Today, the restaurant is bustling. The customers are mostly unalarming, and their dishes unpretentious. with the sole exception of a man in the corner noisily devouring something that apparently requires his head and shoulders to be concealed beneath a silk cloth. As you approach, the man throws off his shroud to reveal he is the gourmand. His plate is spotless, but his lips are stained red. "Come, come, follow me to the kitchen," he demands, standing up so violently that his chair clatters to the floor. The kitchen seems perfectly ordinary for the kitchen of a large restaurant. That is to say, it is in a state of utter chaos, a screaming, clattering, calamitous madness that seems on the verge of spiraling out of control and consuming not just the restaurant's main floor, but possibly the whole of Vale Garden. In here, the gourmand's booming voice finally seems appropriate. "Quiet night tonight," he roars, ducking a thrown cleaver. "Let me introduce you to my staff, what?" A parade of bewildered and furious chefs are brought out to meet you. Several threaten to decapitate you if they're not allowed back to work immediately. You meet a saucy commis who winks at you prettily, and a saucier who propositions you in a shockingly bold manner. Let's ask the gourmand what he wants. He sits you down in the corner of the kitchen and uncorks the bottle you brought. His eyes are feverish and bright. "You saw the eel that was recently caught in the stolen river?" he yells over the kitchen's clamour. "Magnificent, what? And now you seek to catch it for yourself, I understand." He sits opposite you and pours himself a splash of wine. "Zeefood is my specialty, but I've served every dish you can imagine in this restaurant, and some you probably can't," he says. "The sun would weep if it could see what I've cooked. I served the still-beating heart of a milliner bat on a bed of jellyfish slime. I poached a Whitsun egg in the soul of a murderer." He pauses to take a healthy swig. For once his voice is so quiet, you can barely hear it over the kitchen's din. "But that eel, that's new to me. A most tempting dish." He smiles. His teeth are still stained red, possibly from the wine. "My proposal is simple, what?" declares the gourmand jovially, gesturing so broadly he smashes the wine bottle across the kitchen floor. "I'm the finest eel wrangler since Poseidon hung up his trident. With my help you'll surely succeed, and I'll let you study the creature all you like, on the significant proviso that you hand it over to me afterwards, so I can serve it as my next signature dish." So I can agree to the gourmand's proposal. Once you've examined that eel, what happens to it is hardly a concern of yours. Or we can politely refuse. That eel looked distressingly human. You can't allow it to become a delicacy. I think I'm going to politely refuse. "No hard feelings, what?" bellows the gourmand. "Come back to me if you change your mind." As you hurry away from his restaurant, you glance back to see the gourmand staring out of the window after you, smiling madly. He raises a glass in mock salute. Let's have a second attempt at catching the eel. The swarm of eels in the stolen river has reduced to a mere trickle. An observant passerby, willing to spend some time by the riverbank, can still spot a flash of something sleek and sinuous in the water before long. But these are stragglers, nothing more. "I fear we may be too late," says the half-drowned ichthyologist mournfully, greeting you by the riverbank. The vast weight of eels has moved out to Z, where their mysterious spawning grounds await. This is your last chance. So, we can dive into the river and try your best. A net in one hand, some bait in the other, and a bit of nerve. That's all you need. Or if we had favours in the docks, which I do not, we could call on some dock workers of your acquaintance. It's amazing what you can achieve with the aid of a dozen burly folk with calluses on their calluses. Oh well, into the river we go. You splash around in the river for several hours, snatching eels out of the water and holding them up for inspection before grudgingly releasing them. It's a cold, wet, unedifying endeavour. Just as you're about to call it a day, though, you spot something pallid and languorous in the water. Your darting hand closes around what feels like the freezing flesh of a drowned corpse. But it's not. It's the grinning eel. Unmistakable. It has the same hideously human features as that first one you saw. The same elongated nose, the ghastly grin, the frantic eye that glimmers with much cleverness and little sanity. You wade ashore in triumph, holding your catch aloft. "Let's get it to the lab at once," says the ichthyologist, sliding the eel into a waiting water barrel. He pauses for a moment to admire the thing. "As remarkable as you promised. The eel on the slab." Benthic College has kept the ichthyologist's laboratory in perfect condition, hoping he'd one day return to work. A fine layer of dust covers his equipment, but it's otherwise perfectly serviceable. The laboratory seems intended to accommodate two people. Twin workstations face each other across the central table. The grinning eel lies on a slab, flicking its great tail and gnashing its molars. With every thrashing contortion, you can see its curiously human spine flex and pulse beneath its curiously human skin. The ichthyologist flits around it like a hummingbird, measuring, extracting fluids, writing notes, and occasionally muttering the word fascinating. Its physiology is definitely at least somewhat human, he says finally. Note the partially formed pelvis at the base of the spine, the fingernails at the tips of its fins. It has follicles, for goodness sake. Help me lift it. I need to examine the underside. Let's flip the creature. It's 6 feet long and half as heavy as a man. Moving this bulk is beyond the slender ichthyologist's capabilities. You manage to flip the creature onto its side, but it thrashes like never before, so wildly that it hurls itself across the laboratory, smashing flasks and scattering papers. The ichthyologist does his best to hold it still until one powerful tail blow sends him flying into the wall. He sinks to the floor, gasping for breath and clutching his side. At last, the eel's roving eye stops on a glass column that's been partially smashed in the chaos. With an all-too-human shriek, it hurls itself onto the broken glass, impaling itself and unleashing a flood of ichor across the lab floor. As it writhes and dies, the eel fixes its eyes on the ichthyologist's weeping face. "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy," croaks the eel. And then it expires. The eel lies dead. In the wake of such chaos, silence is deafening, and stillness unsettling. The eel just spoke, says the ichthyologist. "Yes, I didn't imagine it." You confirm that, yes, the eel spoke. Specifically, it quoted Shakespeare. This is somewhat surprising, you suppose, but animals speaking English are hardly unheard of. Its partial humanity is more the cause for concern. The half-drowned ichthyologist looks utterly distraught. He begins coughing up water, great, hacking coughs that drench his shirt front and waistcoat. He pounds on his chest until his lungs clear. Something's wrong, he mutters. Those words. We must find the eel spawning ground. That's where the answer lies. So we have 3 options, 4 options. We can dissect the grinning eel. The ichthyologist appears to have lost his nerve. He hands you the scalpel and looks away. Oh, this will be gruesome. You can still choose one of the options below after choosing this one. Let's dissect the eel. What could possibly go wrong? Your scalpel slices down the eel's length, from nape to tip, carving it open and spilling its innards in a steaming pile. Tucked within the creature's silvery flanks lie the unmistakable vestiges of limbs, atrophied arms and legs that slowly unfurl after you cut them free of a translucent membrane. A rib cage, compressed, segmented but unmistakably human, cradles a dual-chambered heart still pulsing with dark blood. Its respiratory system defies classification, with shrunken human lungs connected to gills through a spaghetti-like maze of tubes. The ichthyologist watches over your shoulder, scientific curiosity winning out over the squeamishness, furiously scribbling notes in his book. Finally, once you're both happy with your findings, he helps you sew the eel back together. So we can either gift the eel to science. They'll probably pickle it in a jar and forget it ever existed, but there's always a chance they'll learn something you couldn't. We can deliver the eel's remains to the Gorman. This will likely cause the Gorman to bury the hatchet and become a firm friend of yours, if you want such a thing. Or we can sell it to Mrs. Plenty. Given the level of public interest, you could make a pretty penny out of putting it on display. Ooh. Do I want the Gorman to be my friend? I wasn't going to kill it just so we could eat it, but it's already dead. It's kind of like cannibalism though, right? I think it's the most interesting choice. I'm going to give it to the Gorman. What could possibly go wrong? That thing is most assuredly human, at least in part, mutters the ichthyologist. To hand over such a specimen to a restaurant is truly the height of vulgarity. I'll have no part in it. True to his words, he storms outside and does not come back. Oh no. What have I done? The stereptitious gourmand pulls up outside Benthic in a sleek black carriage. He has a filleting knife, a pot of salt, and a grin as broad as an eel's. This could be my masterpiece, what? He declares as you help him stow the dead creature in the boot. We shall see, we shall see. With a crack of the whip, he careens away amid thunderstorm of hooves. Well, I'm sure that won't cause a problem in the future. But I think I'm going to end the first episode of this exceptional story here. I appear to have made quite the decision between the man of science or the chef. And we'll see where that goes in the next episode. But thank you all very much for being here. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. Thank you again to the members of the channel and the coffee supporters. It really does mean the world to me. And as always, I'll see you next time.